Welcome to the show. We are live, and this is our version of the Resurrection Sunday Rev 5, and we're doing it today just in case. Two things. First thing is, in case we are raptured this weekend, this would be a good time to make a video like this because my plan is to post it on Sunday, but also we have family and all kinds of stuff going on that weekend as well. So it's just a crazy weekend. So I thought, why not do it right now? And we're only going to spend about an hour or so here. I thought I would invite a few friends, some people I missed in the email, but I think Jason John, if he checks his email again, he should see a link on there as well. But how you doing today, Brother Derrick? How's it going?
I am doing good. Luckily, I was able to kind of catch this thing. I actually just took a break from work, so I'm still kind of in just t-shirt. I was out mowing the property, so I'm not quite as dressy here. But I love the intro video. That was really cool. And seeing that we're gonna probably get into some serious stuff, let's get all the silliness out of the way with first. Did you notice my new subtitle? I stole it from you.
Just a monkey in traffic. That's funny.
I stole it from you. I was
That's
listening
funny.
to Uptime on the podcast, and I love that you and Bob were talking. You're like, oh, get me in traffic, and that's me. I'm just
Yep.
a monkey in traffic.
Yep.
Sometimes you get me in traffic, and I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. I love
Yep.
that, dude. So I stole
Yep.
that from you.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it, and just spend a little time talking about the resurrection and um, the potential if in fact this thing airs and we're not here and we're just like that'd be great.
Yep. Yeah, I could, I've never, ever, ever believed in evolution, but you could build a pretty solid case for evolution just by putting an ordinary man in traffic and getting him stuck and late for
Yes.
something. And watch him, all of a sudden his hands will start to curl up and all of a sudden he'll be like,
Yes.
and he starts
Exactly.
freaking out, banging the windshield and all this stuff. I don't
Exactly.
know, you just lose your mind, right?
Exactly.
So,
Hey, can I put a nail in the coffin of evolution real quick?
sure you can.
We actually got into this discussion yesterday on my unanswered question show, and Steven
Okay.
came on, and the subject just came up, and I gave him this little thing to chew on, and he seemed to really like it. And I can't take credit for it. I wish that I wish I could remember who actually said this first, but I think I got this through Answers in Genesis. You know, they do a great creation ministry. Um, and this is what convinced me. This is what like totally nailed it for me that no, there's no evolution. There was no, pre like 6,000 years like young earth thing. So like you'll hear the scientists that'll say, "Oh, we found these dinosaur bones and this dinosaur was, you know, 3 billion years old and we dated his bones and all this other stuff, right?"
Yeah.
So think about this. Just consider this from a theological perspective. We don't know. I'm not arguing for the age of dinosaur bones. We don't know. I'm not a scientist or anything, but what we do know for a fact is that sin has only been in the world about 6,000 years. You know, you can argue whether the earth was a big hunk of rock that's been here for millions of billions of years and then God 6,000 years ago recreated it, whatever you want to argue. But one thing you can't argue is we know sin has only been around for 6,000 years. So this preacher, I want to say it might have been Ken Ham from the creation, Answers in Genesis, said, okay, so if you have a dinosaur that's 3 billion years old, what did he die from? Because sin is what brought the curse of death. So see, it just doesn't make sense because before us troublemakers, Adam and Eve, there was no death. So why would you have something way older than sin that would die? You know, it just doesn't make sense. That for me really kind of like the logic in that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I get the idea. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks,
How
man.
you doing?
Good to see you, brother.
Apologize for the link there. I blasted out a bunch of links at the last minute, and I'm
That's
sorry I
fantastic.
missed you. I figured I'd catch some people in the comments if they want to jump on or whatever. I'll just send them the link. What is interesting, and this is me going off the record so early. This is how the Black Swan thinks. Um, when you talk about Noah and the flood, and after Noah and the flood, we kind of look at it kind of like a surface level. We see the three sons, and then they take off in different directions, and then they start spreading out with various dialects, various languages, I guess. Obviously they had one common, and then as you branch out, you start speaking, based on where you are and all this kind of stuff. Words start forming and all this. You could almost build a case. I'm going somewhere with the dumbness of evolution and stuff. Uh, that you get the pockets of people spreading out into various regions, and we see one of the three sons ending up being cursed by God, and that was the son of Ham, Canaan. And we get this idea that whatever happened, whatever the son did, whatever Ham did, his generation after him got cursed because of it. Like, we don't know exactly, we could hypothesize and all this kind of stuff. But it's interesting that a little while later, all these nations come together and they try and build this tower. And they have one common language, and God comes down, confuses their languages, and then basically or takes away the common language, and then they spread back out again. I find it interesting that there's one tribe that goes in the direction of the east where we have Asians and all that kind of stuff, and then we also have people migrating and going south into Africa and stuff. But there's these pockets of people that write on caves, and they usually write in the form of pictures. It's not always like language, like alphabet and all this kind of stuff. Like it's all pictures, like symbols of animals and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, would it be far fetched to say that a group of people got struck dumb as in they can't communicate with language anymore, but they can communicate with symbols and start trying to remember things like the fall, the tree, the ark, all this kind of stuff, and draw it in symbols because they don't have language. And maybe they get language later, but you get scientists that say all those cave dwellers they were that's evolution. They're way billions of years in the past. That's why they were dumb. And then you can see them evolve into language and all this kind of stuff. When you look at the Chinese language, all their characters, it goes before the missionaries show up. It goes before the missionaries. So back into the past, where you could argue some of their characters, like for Ark, it's like
Mhm.
picture like 8 people on a boat, and then you got a mouth, and you got all kinds of stuff, and it's like, how is it that they knew about the Ark and temptation? It has a picture of a serpent and a
Hmm.
woman and confusion and all this kind of stuff, and you're like, wait a minute here. This language goes way back to a certain time, and they're tying it in with the Garden of Eden, and they know about the flood. Like all these languages all over the world know about the flood, but I just found it interesting that when we go to the Gospels, you see Zechariah being approached by an angel, and the angel says, your wife is going to have a baby, and he starts laughing and saying, "How could this even be possible?" Starts doubting, and the angel says, "I'm Gabriel. I stand before the Lord. You're going to be dumb." And later, we see people trying to figure out what the child's name is going to be. They're like, "Let's call him Zachariah or something." And they're like, "No, no, no, can't be that," or whatever. They're looking at John. Tell us what this child's name could be. And they're trying to motion to him, like give him signals. And I'm like, that's weird. It's almost like he's deaf, but he's not deaf. I think he couldn't comprehend them because when they're trying to motion to him, he's like grabbing for a tablet. And then as he writes something down, he speaks. His name is John.
Hmm.
Something broke him that all of a sudden now he could speak. Whereas before, he was dumb, as in he probably couldn't understand what they were saying on the outside. They're like, man, this guy doesn't get it. We're trying to get a name from him, and he's just like, oh, like who knows what he's trying to sound like? He can't get it out. And then all of a sudden he writes on a tablet, and all of a sudden his name is John. And bam, everybody was amazed that he could speak. I find that interesting. It's kind of a round circle, but yeah, people get
Yeah,
dumb.
yeah,
Is my whole
absolutely,
point. In
absolutely,
traffic, people get dumb.
I'd like
absolutely. Yeah,
to
yeah.
comment on
Sure.
what Derrick had said. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I made a video because I kind of wanted to challenge a guy online about the very thing that Derrick was mentioning. I said, so you're a Christian? He's like, yeah. I said, so you really believe that Jesus came here, died for our sins on the cross? This is about sin, and you agree that sin brought death into the world. Like he's agreeing with all this. I said, do you I I was the reason I reached out is somebody had asked, do you believe in Darwinian evolution as a Christian? He's like, yes. And then, he basically said, there's ways of looking at Genesis, metaphorically. And he said, you can go see inspiring philosophy, stuff like that. So I went on the stream, and that's what I basically challenged with. And it's something that I had to, all of a sudden, it dawned on me, because as I mature, I'm accepting a lot more of the Bible. There's a lot of things like that I wasn't even sure about the Trinity, I think, initially. But as I mature, I'm like taking it at face value a lot more seriously. And that's what I told him. I said, then if you believe in Darwinian evolution, then death arrived way, 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 way before man ever came from monkey. And I was like kind of challenging him with how do you take that seriously, when it's completely, death in a way is the creator, because if there's new body systems that are being formed through just random flukes of mutations that happen to be beneficial, for that mutation to evolve and go forward, all the other body systems have to die. So death is the creator. And the magic is, well, if you just put billions and billions of years out there, somehow billions of years is the magic. So it's a complete, really inversion. Now, I'm not going to go and say like, you're not a Christian because you believe in Darwinian evolution, but it's like, it is important, I think, to throw it out to Christians to really think about this, because every time we give, the wisdom of this world just a little bit of a foothold, then it's the atheists, the agnostics, the secularists, the materialists. They'll use that little point that we give away because we want to be like, well, I believe in science too, and then it leaves it open to criticism, to be ripped apart. And also with the dinosaurs that you had mentioned, just you mind popping up just the share screen?
Sure.
It won't take long. We're not going through any articles, but it's important
I
for
had
people
to I had to go away for a sec because I put one of those
That's fine.
Hall's candies in my mouth and it made me sneeze. So I'm like, I want to blow.
I've been breathing in grass cuttings all day, so I might be right there with you. I might be sneezing in here.
We're popping in and out, right? Allergy
So
season.
let me see if I'm still here. Yeah. So tell me, are you sharing it?
Let's see here. Let's see what we got. Oh, let me get rid of this. There it is. All right.
So people can, go dig into this stuff on their own, but I'm at least pointing. So they're finding flexible tissue when they're snapping dinosaur bones. So some of them, I guess, are not completely even fossilized, which brings, the age of where they're throwing, the dinosaurs 200 million years ago. So go do your own research to the people that are watching. This is flexible tissues. There's also various cell components that are still present inside these dinosaur bones. Initially, I guess they weren't breaking bones apart, because they thought they were valuable. But there's just so many dinosaur bones now that, one of the scientists broke it apart. And they're still trying, to say, well, now let's find a scientific way of making, a hypothesis that it could have lasted, this flexible tissue, for 200 million years, which is completely ridiculous. But anyone who starts researching this, it's like, to me, it's like Derrick said, this like 200 million year kind of stuff. I'm not buying it at all.
Yeah.
Isn't
it?
Just one last thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's they talk about Darwinian evolution as like the tree of life, right? From the simple microorganism. Well, first of all, go see animations of just the bacterium flagellum, the motor gears, the rotary gears. There's no simple cell like that we learned. It's complex, okay? And if anything's missing, the whole thing doesn't work. So people have noticed that some of them call it, I think it's the Cambrian explosion, when they were saying that life didn't seem to appear suddenly. It seemed like there was like all of a sudden, boom, tons of different kind of life. So it's really not a tree of life that they're actually seeing. It's the forest of life, right from the start. And if the fountains of the deep broke open, these subterranean chambers burst open, because we often think it rained, for a long time, but it's really actually it's the fountains of the deep that burst open. And you can imagine the immense power, of it. And it's just normal that it's the aquatic life that would have been carried in with all of this turbulent mud and then layered as the waters receded. And this happened over and over, adding layers of sediment. The next eruptions would have would have buried more complex, and probably the biggest of like humans for perhaps and stuff like that were smart. They're trying to get the higher grounds. There was a lot of organic matter that was not buried, and that kind of stuff that was not buried would have rotted, would have been just exposed, because for fossilization to happen, it has to be buried quickly and not exposed to the atmosphere and oxygen
Right.
or anything like that. That's
Right.
my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely cool stuff. And I have no problem with dinosaurs being just before the flood. Like, I have no
Yeah,
problem with that.
yeah,
They look mysterious. Some of it looks like they're mixing DNA. Some of it looks fake. Some
Yes.
of it looks real. Some of it looks hideous. Like, there's all kinds of, if you go back into history, you could start seeing, folklore of monsters. And it's
yes.
interesting that we can come across so-called dinosaur bones and start breaking them apart and all this kind of stuff, but nobody talks about giant bones. It's like
Right.
they'll never bring that up and say, hey, we're today in school, we're going to bring a whole bunch of giant bones and we're just going to start exploring them, and we're going to look at the marrow, and we're going to break them open, and we're going to start looking at, oh, look at this one. This was about 30 feet tall. That's kind of interesting. And
Mhm.
start breaking them down. No, it's like, no, we don't go there, but we can go dinosaur. We can go there. But it's like,
Yeah.
well, you have that too, but you're kind of cherry picking what you want us to study. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny, kind of
Well, and,
interesting.
and it's also the interesting thing, and again, I'd have to give credit to Answers in Genesis, who does an excellent job on explaining some of this stuff. But because I never knew until I had heard this through Answers in Genesis, it's very consistent that reptiles continue to grow all their life.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So like it's consistent that these dinosaurs would be so big because pre-flood the environment was oxygen rich, and there was they had no natural predators, so sure they're just going to keep on growing for whatever it was 1400 years until the flood.
Mm.
So that's very consistent. The other thing too that just kind of really eh, when we enter into this debate, my thoughts on this are this. So the Bible says that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And I think it's easier. Some people get, they get clouded up with carbon dating and all this other stuff, which to me, I, I'm like, look, none of us were around 2 billion years ago to test the carbon then compared to the carbon today. So how do we know that it doesn't decay at a rate that's not standard, that it decays?
Yeah.
We don't know these things. I'd rather just believe what God said. But some people, they think, well, it's easier for them to believe like God took, 7 billion years to create the earth instead of 7 days. But my question always is like, if God said, how big is your God? I mean, how
Yeah.
powerful do you think your God? I believe personally, my belief is, if God wanted to create the world in 6 minutes instead of 6 days, he could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could have talked like an auctioneer and just said, "Let there be light," let there be, and boom, there's Earth. So
Yeah.
he has the power to do that. So because he chose to do it in 6 days rather than 6 hours or 6 minutes, what's the difference? So
Yeah.
that to me is like the focus. Like, is your God powerful enough to do what he said he can do or not? If you
Yeah.
don't believe he can do it in 6 days, now that's a bigger problem, because now you're going to doubt whether he can actually raise a man from the dead, which is what we're going to celebrate this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
He either can do it or he can't do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to believe it. It says 6 days. I'll believe 6 days, Um,
Yeah.
we can argue again, was it says the earth was without form and void. And so was there some kind of big rock that was like, did he, people will argue, well, he recreated the earth. All right, we can have those arguments. I don't mind
Yeah.
talking about that. But as far as
Yeah.
the world as we know it, the world we currently live in,
Yeah.
I think it's only about 6,000 years old, and it was made in 6 days.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And the first, like for us, it's almost like the chapter begins in Genesis 1 for mankind, because we see waters right out of the gate. You need oxygen for waters and stuff,
mhm.
unless I'm not a rocket surgeon, but it sounds like to me that you have some kind of an atmosphere going on where the Holy Spirit is floating above the waters, and then light and all kinds of stuff starts happening, and it actually gets quite fascinating, right?
Mhm.
But when you talk about belief, Like eventually you're going to have to come to a point where you're like, I believe the Bible. Like you're
Yes.
going to have to do that, because
Yes.
if you wrestle with it and say, yeah, I don't know about this serpent in the garden thing, like that's
Right.
you watch a lot of channels with Jewish scholars that
Mhm.
try and explain away the serpent. They're like, yeah, come on, guys, the talking snake, that's crazy. That's for children. Children talk like this. So it's symbolic and blah blah blah, right? So they don't like to talk about Satan, the serpent. They'll say he was never called Lucifer. That's a made up name. Heaven, we don't talk about heaven either because it's all here on earth.
Mhm.
And that the guy Jesus, he was a good man, but he's loony. He's crazy. He's a crazy man. So we don't believe him. In your New Testament, it's crazy, the stuff that's going on in there. So eventually you're going to have to go, I believe the Bible versus
Yes.
man.
Yep.
Because I tell you, for every book in the Bible, there's going to be somebody coming against it saying Moses isn't real.
Yes.
He's fake. He's a made up name. Jesus wasn't real. The Bible's not real. The King James Bible is not authoritative. You're going to find it. I'm telling you, you're going to run into it. So eventually you're going to have to anchor into something. And I suggest to you that you anchor into the Word of God. Otherwise, you're going to get slapped all over. And then the resurrection itself to you is going to be, well, maybe what happened was Jesus got pierced, but the Roman soldiers weren't very good at it. So when they looked away, he pulled himself down with his hands. And then after he got harpooned, he pulled the spear out and then drug himself across the cobblestones and made it to where the disciples were banging on the door. And they're like, is that somebody knocking on the door? Because it sounds like it's a puppy at the door on
Mhm.
the front because it's so low. Let's go check. Let's open. Oh, our savior of the universe. You're here. Wow. You look a little rough around the edges still. I know. I made it. I pulled myself off the cross.
Yeah.
Let's get this church going here. Like
Yeah. You
eventually you're going to be like, man, this is what people are believing out there, that Jesus pulled himself off the cross, stuck away, the
if you
disciples
were
grabbed him.
I was gonna say if you were Peter, James, or John, or any of the rest, you wouldn't die for that. That's not something you would die for that story.
No,
If you saw a
that
guy pull himself off the cross, you wouldn't give your life as a martyr for that. You wouldn't die for that.
no, I can't imagine what the conversation would be around the campfire. Jesus, do you want a little bit of this? Because you're bleeding out the side, like
Yeah, right. Right.
you this where the spear was. You're bleeding still.
Yeah,
Beard is plucked off. Like he was marred beyond recognition.
right.
And
He
he's
was
gonna talk to you about, hey, I overcame death, so can you guys.
he wasn't the Black Knight on the Holy Grail, in other words.
Yes.
I can
Yeah.
still go
So
on. I can still fight. No.
come back. I'll bite you.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
bite
right.
you.
Exactly. No,
It's just a flesh wound.
amen. I see Angina just said hello, just a monkey in traffic. For anybody that's wondering, see, first of all, I wanted a cool nickname like Jason John Swartz. He's got the man, the myth, the legend. That was already taken. But for anybody that's wondering, this is an homage. How you like that big fancy $10 word? This is an homage to Shane. Shane and Bob Barber on Uptime the other night, because Shane was telling Bob, like get any of us in traffic and get us stressed out. We're just like a monkey in traffic, He's like, ooh, 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 ooh. I love that. So I'm like, that's my new subheading for at least
Yeah,
today, anyway.
you can almost build a case for evolution right there.
That's right.
Because man,
Except it's
that would be shaky ground for me because I've
it's
turned into a monkey in traffic.
it's devolution though. It's not evolution. We all devolve when we get in traffic.
Yeah. So funny.
I think something that's really relevant to the resurrection, and I for some reason, yes, Christians have a strong opinion on this. Maybe it's because it comes currently it's housed by the Catholic Church, but as a side interest and something that actually prior to becoming Christian really kind of made me go, whoa, like maybe this guy ain't just a mythology and stuff like that, is the Shroud of Turin.
Yes.
And it's not an icon. It is literally a burial shroud. okay, of a man that is crucified that happens to have all of the marks of the Jesus described in the biographies, the Gospels. The back, we have the scourging marks. The front, we have the scourging marks. We have something that's quite unique because there's many people that were crucified, but there's wounds on the top of the head, about 50 wounds, just if we're counting the head. And interestingly enough, often we see a depiction of the nails going through the palm of the hand, which, to be honest, would rip right through the flesh. The nail marks of the man, I'm trying to be objective, not saying it's Jesus.
Right.
Okay, let other people decide. Is between the radial and ulnar bone. Okay, and
sure.
right here where there's a grouping of bones that would really solidify. It is so it has all the markings. It's human blood. It's AB. The blood samples analyzed have ferritin, creatinine, bilirubin, which are markers in the blood that increase during trauma. Okay, because creatinine is builds up in the blood. It's when you have muscle breakdown. So you can imagine just the scourging marks all over his muscle tissue. With people get what's called rhabdomyolysis during marathons sometimes because they run and the muscle breakdown. The creatinine and all of these markers also clog up the kidneys. You can go into kidney failure. So if this is a forgery, it means that this guy was amazing, okay?
Yes.
Because he thought of putting blood samples of a traumatized victim.
Right.
So there's the shroud.com. You can look that it's, AB. It has biological markers of traumatized blood, and the image is on just 1/10 of the fibers of this burial shroud.
Right.
There's a place where I checked, it's like some insane amount. If we were to, like, it's like an X-ray, right? You know, we're shooting radiation through the body, and it's an imprinting. So it has three-dimensional qualities. It's the most tested artifact in the world. And there's the Shroud of Turin. So STURT research project that you can go see their website and look at all of this. And these weren't Christians that were, analyzing as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful. It's the world's first selfie, and it's inverted, right? So you know how when we used to take pictures and we'd get like the photo negatives and they're all distorted, but the photo positive has details. Well, it's the opposite. It's very faint, the image, but when this photographer in the 16th century, I think perhaps, took a photo of it, all the details. So the photo negative was a detailed photo positive. I think this is extremely relevant. Do you want to
are they so these are non-Christians that are studying it? Not Christians?
The Shroud of Turin research project, where they were just secular scientists. One of them, his name is something Barry Schwartz, was an atheist.
He's your brother. You found him. You found him.
Let me just
did they
share
find
screen
any?
Just so people can see it? And
did they find any fold creases in it?
Well, there's a lot of stuff.
Because remember, it was folded up,
and then where it was housed in a silver casing in a cathedral, it burnt down. And what ended up happening was the silver started leaking. And let me just show you where the scorch marks are.
So non-Christians found this in a Catholic church.
No, this popped up. It was given suddenly. Now I might be a little I'm paraphrasing from memory. It was given to some family. It just suddenly resurfaced as a gift. And then eventually became housed in Turin of Italy. Currently, at one point, it's the Catholic Church that now has possession of it. But this doesn't originate from Catholicism. This was present in history prior to where it's currently being taken care of.
So is this where we get the white Jesus from, the white European face of a Jesus? Is that
This
kind of the
is
idea
where we
behind?
yes, this is where we get the more classical image of Jesus. The images started to be depicted like this when this came on the scene. So we you see that all
I'm not
the white is where there's bloods, and look at all the stripes. Okay, that's all the flogging marks right here. This area, this white, that's blood. That's exactly where you remember in the gospel. Remember, obviously, you remember the being pierced uh, because he died the side wound with the spear. These triangles, though, are repair areas because of a fire that occurred. And the latest research for dating of this is wide angle X-ray scattering wax, which looks at the natural degradation of the fibers. This is flax fibers. So it's the natural degradation of the cellulose, and it's dated to first century. There was in 1988 carbon dating. Now, first of all, this thing went through a fire, and you're going to use carbon dating. Second
Yeah.
of all, it was highly biased. The labs knew what they were testing. It was supposed to be 3 different sample areas.
right.
It was taken very low here, and we know that there's a repaired area because it was unraveling. So they actually sewed during the time, like probably medieval times, they sewed areas on the outer limit, and it's not the same. One of them's flax, the original, and the sample is cotton. So this is this is amazing, and I think they said the amount of energy required is insane.
Right.
Let me see if I have the estimates of it. Approximately 34 billion watts of ultraviolet radiation over the span of a billionth of a second. Because if you need enough energy to create that X-ray image, but the duration, if it's too long, would have just caught it on fire. And there is something you can check just on PubMed, DNA, low grade biophoton emission from DNA. So in PubMed, it actually says that our DNA actually emits biological light, a very low grade biological light. And let's use our imagination. At the time of his resurrection, you can imagine that there was a burst of light, okay, not coming from heaven down, but from inside outwards to because it has to come from the body and then outwards into into the cloth, So it was brief, and so the whole shroud is proof of the crucifixion because of all the wounds that match up with the Gospels, proof of his death because of the amount of blood and the biological markers, and then proof of the resurrection because of the image that science still to this date cannot explain.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had a dream a while ago. I don't know, probably about a year ago or whatever. And you know how most dreams you can't control. Most of them, like I think I've had 1, maybe 2 dreams where I can control the input, the data, and change things around or redo the dream. You're like, oh, I didn't like how that one ended. Then you redo it again or whatever. But this dream was kind of, I remember praying before that the Lord would show me a rapture. I prayed about it. Lord, could you just show me the rapture or whatever kind of thing? And instead, what I got was a funeral. So I saw myself at my funeral rising out of the box, out of the case. It was like a black case or whatever. And I was rising up towards heaven. And I saw Jesus, but he didn't look like to me. And again, I'm a white guy. I'm a white guy. So in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to make Jesus look like what I think he should look like or whatever.
Mm.
But when I got to heaven, he kind of looked like a Trinidadian.
Hmm.
And I was going to say something in my dream to him, but I thought, that's kind of too obvious or whatever. And I'm like the first thing is, you look black to Jesus. That's what I felt like saying to him. But my dad showed up, and I also was busy with looking at some other relatives, right? And I'm like, then I woke up. So it was real quick, but that's the first thing I saw was like locks. And I'm like, you look very Middle Eastern, almost Trinidadian, I would say, because of the dreadlocks and all that kind of stuff, right? And he was happy and everything. I'm like, oh, that's totally not what I thought Jesus would look like. I thought he looked more like Derrick, because look at Derrick. You can pose an argument. Derrick looks either like Noah
Don't blaspheme the Lord
or
that way.
Abraham.
He's gonna hold you accountable for that, bro.
But it's kind of like we have our picture when we go around. Oh, there's a European Jesus, skinny, white, redheaded, all this stuff. And I'm not saying he may not look like that, but if you go to Africa, they don't think Jesus looks like a redheaded white guy. That's European. We think that, and probably in China, it probably looks more Asian. I don't know. I'm spitballing because I haven't traveled all over the world, but we kind of have an influence over what we want Jesus to look like. And maybe perhaps that's why it was kind of forbidden in the Old Testament to have images of God, right? Because there's a reason why he went beside Moses and put his hand over him when he was in a cleft of a rock to hide his face. Maybe that's Jesus, and he didn't want Moses to see him right away from the face. I don't know. I don't know. And they start making images and all this kind of stuff.
Also,
right?
I mean, I think that also even to make everyone happy, no matter whether he looked darker pigment or not, he was, even in his resurrected body, that's not his true image either, right? We know that the transfiguration, and then we have his hair white as wool, and I mean the true image of Jesus is like fire bellowing out, his legs looking like bronze, his eyes flaming fire. There he is, and that means he doesn't look like anybody.
Well, when you think about Revelation, like the white as wool, name a race that has wool that looks white and is woolly, or name a race that has bronze legs that are very dark, almost black. Because you heat up bronze, it's not going to be white, is my point. Like, you have white garments, white clothes, and I get it. Like, I'm not saying, like, if I were to come back in another life, the kind of skin type that I would like would be Persian. I think I'd like to come back as a Persian, or maybe kind of like a Middle Eastern, like some of their skin. I'm like, you have amazing skin. Look at this. I break out. I'm blotchy all over. Like some white guys, we look horrible. Like horrible, right?
I'm gonna give you something to think about, and this is gonna be strictly off the record, as you like to say. Okay.
Now you're safe if you do it off the record. You're safe.
So
Jason, if you want to say something, just go off the record, and then we're safe.
I shared an image with you, and the reason I shared it is because we were talking about the shroud. This is supposedly a computer generated image of what the man in the shroud would have looked like. If you want to share it, feel free. If not, that's okay.
Where is it?
Share it.
Okay, so this is supposedly what they took from the shroud, what the man in the shroud would look like. Now, having said that, again, do we know that this is what Jesus looked like when he was on the earth? No, we don't know. And I'll be very honest with you. I had a vision and or a dream. I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was a vision, but it happened when I was about 20 years old. I was recently born again, and I was fairly well convinced. The night that I had it, I was pretty sure I was going to die because I had a really bad fever. I was in a hotel room with no heat in about, November, like late November. And I was when I went to sleep, I really thought, well, this is it. I thought I'm just going to close my eyes and die because that's how bad I felt. And
Wow.
again, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was a vision. All I know is that after I went to sleep, like I was on the ceiling of the hotel looking down at the hotel room. I saw my body laying in the bed. I saw the door to the hotel room open and a figure all in white walked in, kissed me on the forehead, and immediately, like that, I woke up. My fever was gone. I was totally healed. And I knew it was Jesus, but I never saw his face. That's
Right.
the thing. He was all in white, but I never saw his face. So what he's going to look like, again, the Bible says we know him after the flesh no more. We don't know, what he looked like then, and whatever he looked like then, he's not going to look like when we see him in heaven. And here's what's going to blow your mind. This is what I'm going to say is off the record, okay?
Okay.
Could it be that whenever we get up there, could it be that he is so glorious and so marvelous that the features of his face are almost like a shapeshifter that go from an Oriental to an Anglo to a Negro to like all different features? As we're looking at him, we're going to see all of humanity in him because he's our creator. I don't think we're going to look at him and see, just a black man, a black man's features, or just an Oriental man's features, or just a European white man. I think he's all things to all men because he has created all of us, and he created us diverse because that's how he wanted us. That's how he rejoices in us. So anyway, that's off the record, but that's just kind of a thought. I thought that was kind of interesting to think about.
I think this one is a more accurate recreation of what he assuming the assumption that the Shroud of Turin. So let's stay objective. This is a more accurate AI recreation of what the man likely looked like. I'm not playing the volume, and I'll stop and pause because I don't want to get striked or anything.
Sure.
I just want to see the transition. Is it on?
Let's see here.
It's supposed to. It's a short.
I don't see it yet.
You should.
Is it? It's not this one, right?
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So this is more realistic, I think.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And he looks like the Semitic people,
That's kind of that's kind of what I
That's
picture.
more realistic. The other one is a little too Caucasianized.
Yes.
He's a little too good looking too. But I this one is very well done, and the way the guy recreated it, I'm just stopping and commenting. As long as we were commenting and there's no volume, I think we're safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because
that's
kind of how I picture based on the region and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't think he's a white redhead. Could he be a redhead? For sure he could be. I think I think you'd have a better case that the Antichrist is going to be a redhead.
Now I've heard some weird things about redheads. I have heard that redheads are like from Nephilim or something. But see, I could say that because I'm married to a redhead. So
yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I don't I've heard that.
And you prefaced it by off the record.
Off the record. That's
any
right.
redhead could be the Antichrist. No. Look at this here. This picture here kind of is intriguing to me because that would be maybe perhaps closer kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem because there's a little bit of a Middle Eastern kind of a look to it, to him.
That's the little girl, right? That's supposedly seeing Jesus, and she does all these paintings.
Yep.
Yeah. I could buy that. Like that. Yep. That to me is like, that kind of seems like that would be what he would look like. It's kind of what I picture as well. Interesting. Are you taking us on the tour?
There's a purpose why the tent of meeting initially, right, was just clothed with animal skins, layers and layers of like nothing impressive, but when you went inside, it was all gold and royal colors and stuff like that. It's interesting. Like what interests me isn't like what the physical image looks like. He looks like this compared to that. It's what it represents, that there is
Yes.
an image of a human, and with
Yes.
all the, the stuff like that. And like I said, they didn't even recognize him when he was resurrected, So
Yeah.
there's something
Yep.
different. He didn't look the same. I think that and then, like you said, you just look at the transfiguration, and then after you look at the descriptions of Revelation, and it's like, look, he doesn't look like any particular race. He's
Another
built of fire and glory.
Here's another theory of why they may not have recognized him after the resurrection. That again, just after a little bit of study, and maybe we'll do off the record on this one too. I don't know. Although this one has a little bit, this has a little bit more biblical evidence to it. I have also heard that it's very possible that after his death and burial, he may have, in some way, he might have taken the Nazarite vow, or if you're familiar with the Nazarite vow at all back in the Old Testament, because at the Passover he said, "I will not drink of this fruit of the vine again until I drink it anew with you in the kingdom." So that was part of the Nazarite vows. You had to abstain from wine or grapes or any. So there's that element of it. Plus, when Mary saw him risen in the garden and she went to approach him, he says, "Don't cling to me, because I have not yet ascended to my Father." So what's that all about? If you remember right, a Nazarite could not be contaminated by death. And so Mary had just previously handled his dead body. So she was unclean due to death, so if he had taken a Nazarite vow, now if he took a Nazarite vow, the other thing about that would have been immediately after his resurrection, he very likely would have had shaved head and shaved beard. Because that's what the Nazarite did. He died. I mean, his body was dead. So he may have been like totally bald with no beard or anything. And that's why maybe the disciples were like, "Who's this? Who's this?" Granted, I think there were maybe some other differences as well. I don't know if he appeared in like glowing white light or anything, but physically, I think that's a high possibility that he might have been, clean shaven and bald and no beard and everything. And they're like, "This guy looks familiar, but maybe not,"
Yeah, because the ending of a Nazarite vow is basically if you break the vow, you could still finish it, but you had to shave your head and everything, and then start all over from scratch and just finish it. So, say for example, I had a vow of 1 year, and I'm 11 months in, and I break my vow. I'd have to shave everything, and then I got to start all over again.
Start over, start
So
over.
now. So now
who
Jason's
looks
right
like
in the
Jesus?
middle of his vow, I think. Jason,
See, you were saying earlier, I'm the one who looks more like Jesus. Okay,
That's it.
I would say more like Father Abraham.
Yeah,
I would say.
that's
Three
like I
stages.
said, it's interesting to think of. I mean, it certainly would explain a lot. And that's the thing too. I did a lot of studying on that Nazarite vow because it's interesting if you get into the weeds and ask the question why. Why did God want the Nazarite to abstain from those three things, or abstain from two things: death, the fruit of the vine, which is wine, and why? Here's the real kicker: why grow your hair long? Why? Now, I can explain the death part and the wine part. I could say, okay, well, the fruit of the vine, that has something to do with communion, just like Jesus said he was going to abstain until he saw us again. The death part is certainly, we know, he was dead, buried, resurrected. So like he conquered death. I get all that, but why grow your hair long? And the only thing I could figure out that part of the vow, what is the one thing that is absolutely required to grow your hair long? Do you know the one thing that you must have to grow your hair long?
Permission from your wife?
Yeah, right. No, first of all, you got to start out with some hair. Like I don't have any, but patience. If you think about it, the only thing you're going to need to grow your hair long is you have to wait and be patient. There's no way you can make it grow any faster. And so I kind of feel like this is, in a way, this is a call to all of us spiritually as watchmen. We have to patiently wait for his return. That's what I think the Nazarite vow was all about, was about those of us who eagerly await for his return, and we are patiently just waiting for his return. And he's patiently waiting to come get us, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The only, again, if we're staying off the record, reason why I would think that he didn't make a Nazarite vow, he made the wine thing for sure. I get it. Is he touched so many dead bodies, man.
Right.
in his lifetime, like he would touch dead bodies and
Right.
raise them up from the dead. So sometimes if you're making a Nazarite vow, you can't touch a dead
Right.
body. And he
Right.
wasn't a priest or anything, right? Like he was
Right.
in his earthly ministry, he wasn't showing up as a priest.
Right.
That's not what he was doing. He
Well,
was healing people and everything, what they should have done, but he didn't show up as my understanding as a priest going around because he
to
would
be
tell
to be
people, go be a priest, like go show yourself to the priest.
to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying he made it throughout his lifetime when he was here on this earth. Just that
Right.
may have been something that he did, post resurrection. That may have been because he fulfilled all the law. So at
Right.
some point we have to ask, well, when did he fulfill the Nazarite thing? If it
Yeah.
wasn't during his earthly ministry, it could be his post resurrection. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So because he touched a lot of dead bodies when he was here.
He's healing a lot
You
of
know,
people.
he healed a
I,
lot of
I
people.
forget what that there's a phrase. I want to call it, maybe this is me inventing this phrase for the first time here.
Hmm.
Clarkodian
Clarkodian.
disease, which is basically like Clark Kent. There's probably a better name for it. But if you
Okay.
take off the glasses, all of a sudden people are like, "Oh,
They don't
he's
recognize you.
yeah, he's Superman. Where did he go?" And then you put, "Oh, there he is. There he is. He's back." Right?
I
Kind of
might have
thing.
to
Like,
save that one. That might be my next subtitle,
yeah, it's
"Suffer of
like
Clarkodian disease."
I seen a skit with a little bit of cursing in it, but with Batman and Superman meeting for the first time,
Mhm.
and Batman was arguing with Superman that he has the dumbest disguise on earth, that it will never work. The idea of just putting on glasses, and as he's talking to him, he put on his glasses, and Batman's like, "Where did he go? Where did he go? Where did?" And then he took it off, and he's like, "Oh, there you are. Where did you go for a second?" And it was
Yep,
like I was just rolling,
that's good,
right? But
good.
it happens because I've seen people in a grocery store wearing an apron, maybe a red apron, wearing an apron, and then when they're outside the grocery store and they're walking in another environment, they walk right by you and you're like, they'll say hi, how rude are you? You don't remember me? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness.
Well,
Yeah, you're the manager of Safeway. I
that's
didn't
like
recognize you because you
that's
weren't in your outfit.
that's like me. That's why nobody at the Passover, everybody's like, "Hey, where'd Derrick go?"
Yeah, where's Derrick?
Where's Derrick?
Where'd he go?
Oh, hold on. Oh, he's back. There's Derrick. It's like I've always got a
Yeah.
ball cap on. So,
So
yeah,
there is something to that,
something to it. Yeah,
that you could
exactly.
just change the glasses and people won't recognize you, man. It's
Yep.
weird. So imagine Jesus being in his resurrected body, like perfect.
Yeah.
And the last image that you have of is his beard being ripped off and being beaten
Yep.
and bloodied. That's going to burn right in your retinas. And then when
Yeah.
you see a guy walking beside you and he's like, what's going on? It's like, are you like a stranger here? You don't even know what's going on? Like on the road to Emmaus, two disciples that knew him. It's like, you
Hmm.
don't know what's going on? Our master just got killed, and we thought he was going to be resurrected, and people are saying that they see him, and he was going to walk by them
Hmm.
as they're going into the house. And they didn't get it until he broke bread in front of them and disappeared. And they're like, he was here all along, and we were inside going, man, this guy's reminding us so much of our master.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
disappeared. So I know there's something to that where if you shaved your beard, I'm sure you'd walk right by me and I'd be like, I don't
I
know
did
you.
that once to mess with my kids probably about 16, 17 years ago. I did it just to mess with my kids when they were little, and they both kind of were like,
Who are
My
you?
son finally figured it out. He recognized my voice, but it took him a few minutes.
Yep. So I don't want to go too much longer here, but I thought
Yeah.
maybe we could go kind of final thoughts with Jason. Derrick, what are your plans for the weekend? And then how you approach, we don't want to call it Easter, but we know it deep down inside what it is, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We call it Resurrection Sunday. I kind of like that. So what are your guys' plans for the weekend?
Family, yeah. There's a family function. Michelle has a big family, so we're going to be seeing the family Friday. And there's something on Sunday. I'll be doing a live stream on Saturday. I'll be doing a live stream as well in 2 hours on Old Testament Trinity, basically looking at the messenger of Yahweh, where Yahweh shows up in human form. And it's just to prove that the New Testament didn't come up with something actually very new. There's shadows of the messenger of the Lord that is claiming to be Yahweh, then pointing to God. So yeah, it's what convinced me about the Trinity when I was struggling about it. I was getting confused with because they refer to his humanity, but then they refer to his divinity. But the humanity parts where he had a father and a God, I was like, then he can't be God. It was confusing me. But when Michael Heiser did the Jewish Trinity, and he showed me these passages where the word of the Lord is there, saying that he's creator in human form, and the Holy Spirit is there. It was like, okay, it finally clicked. And, so for me, it's very important. So I'm doing a series. This would be episode 2. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
So go check out the man, the myth, the legend. I think you should change your YouTube channel to that name. Man, the myth, the legend. And then Derrick can change his channel, Just a Monkey in Traffic.
Just a monkey in traffic. That's it. That's pretty much all it is.
You might get a few more hits.
That's all it is, That's all it is. So
what are your plans this weekend?
I am going to be I'm actually going with my family to World Outreach Church in Murfreesboro. My kids all like it there. It's kind of a mega church a little bit, but the kids like it, and he preaches a really good message. So I'm not opposed to going there. I like going there myself. So yeah, we're going to do church on Sunday, and to everybody out there, whatever you call it. I mean, we called it Easter when I was a kid, and I learned later in life about, some of the pagan influences, but as long as you know what you're celebrating, whether, we call it Resurrection Day now, and that's probably the most appropriate title. It was at one time called the Day of First Fruits back in Leviticus. That's what it originally started off as, was one of the feasts, and it was the Feast of First Fruits, when you would offer your first fruits. And that's because Jesus is the first fruits from the dead. We have to remember that. That's why he rose on a Sunday, was because that's what the Old Testament prescribed. It had to be on a Sunday when you would offer those first fruits. And he is risen. He's risen from the dead. And because he lives, we will live also. I mean, if not for that, what hope do we have? As Paul said, we've got the promise of resurrection. Whether we die before the rapture, we'll be raised first if we die before the rapture, or we may be alive and remain. And I think that we all look forward to that. I think we're all in that rapture bang zone where I think it's coming very, very soon. Yeah. I did a video on my YouTube channel. I called it actually, I'm going to share my page real quick if you don't care. Okay. And that way you can show it anybody that wants to go there. It is, if I could get it here. I don't know why this little tab isn't showing here. Maybe I can do this.
Oh no, that's not it.
No. Let's see. Yeah, it's not showing. I don't know why it's not showing. It's called Why Do I Believe? You could go to my my playlist for my testimony, and it's the first one under there. It says, Why Do I Believe? Evidence of the God of Resurrection. If you are in doubt of his resurrection, or if you know anyone who doubts the resurrection, this video is for you. I made this video especially just with evidences. I'm not trying to slam the Bible down your throat either, believe it or not. I mean, Bible study with Derrick. This is more like if you're an outsider looking in, what are some of the evidences just from history that would lead you to believe that this tale that we tell about this man who rose from the dead, why can we trust that is true and accurate? That's what I made this whole video for. And if you have any doubt, or if you know somebody that has a doubt, I would highly encourage you to check it out.
So where am I going here?
Go to the playlist, My Testimony.
You want to see something very Matrix like? Look at this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Here we go. You want to see? We are there. Something very Matrix like. Look at this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. We just transported through time, man. Okay. Sorry. Where are we going?
There you go, right there. See that image? Go below and see that image that I showed you earlier, that one that looks like the Shroud of Turin? Right at the bottom
Oh,
of
on
the
the
page in
bottom?
the middle.
Yeah, created
Oh,
playlist,
yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
My
there it is.
testimony?
That's it right there.
So
And
you want
of course, you got to watch
Okay.
a commercial, right? I don't
to be a
monetize these things.
software
That's YouTube.
engineer? Go to boot.dev.
But that's the video. Why do I believe evidence of the God of resurrection? And if you want some good solid reasons to believe that the resurrection was accurate, and again, I don't use a lot of scripture, which is something I usually do. I usually use a lot of scripture. In this one, I'm gearing this more towards somebody who says, yeah, the Bible's a bunch of garbage, I don't believe it. This is going to
Yeah.
give you reasons to believe, just from a secular perspective. Why, if you really think about it, I'm trying to be like a lawyer in court building a case. That's what I'm trying to do with this video.
Look at your
Pondering
beard.
some
It's all
evidence.
Yeah.
trim. It's
Yeah,
all tidy. Look
I'm
at
due
that.
for another one. I'm due for another trim.
Is
This was done a while back, so
Is
but
this
it's there.
you as well?
Peter, the fisherman turned apostle. He was
Was that you? No?
That might be in about 10 years. That's looking pretty familiar, although he's got more hair than I do. I envy that head of hair. So
Everybody should read also Psalms 22 and Isaiah 53.
yes.
Actually starts
Yeah.
at the end, Isaiah 52, but 53, Isaiah,
Yeah,
and
sure.
Psalms 22 for people that perhaps are not Christian, or are on the fence about things. The Dead Sea Scrolls at least pushes Isaiah to at least 100 years, before Christ. So it's a strong prophecy, and it's a painting of the Passion of Christ, really.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Well, thank you guys for being on here. And of course, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Christ. So if you are watching the show and you don't believe in Jesus Christ, maybe you're part of the audience that's like, I have no faith. I don't go to church. I don't necessarily believe. I think there could be a reason. Well, I know there's a reason why you're on this channel right now at this particular time, is when Jesus calls, it's up to you to answer that call. So if you feel a little bit of a tug where it's like, man, I gotta get to know him because there's something pulling at me, I would recommend that you would get yourself a Bible, get your hands on a Bible, or find a Christian brother. You can reach out to any one of us as well, and
Yep.
we can walk you through the salvation of Jesus Christ as well, how that works, what that looks like, and all that kind of stuff. Just feel free to reach out to any one of us on our channels. Just comment in the channel. But time is short. You don't know where you're going to be tomorrow. We can't guarantee where we're going to be tomorrow and this weekend. And we don't know when the Lord is coming back. So I think it's important to find a church in your local area, go attend a church, and pay attention to that little tug. Because if we've said something during this episode that makes you a little curious, then I think you owe it to yourself to explore that. That I'm not going to walk you through everything here, but I think it's up to you to do your due diligence as well for yourself,
Yeah.
to look him up.
And even if you have a few friends and you all just join at one person's home,
Yeah.
and open up the Bible, and even watch perhaps a sermon together, that's a church. Where there's a body, two or more, there Christ is in the midst of us, So
Yeah, for sure, for
there's
sure.
always a way.
100%. All right, thank you guys. I'll just toss you in the back and
All
then
right.
stick around, and I'll just say goodbye to everyone.
All right.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you guys for sticking around for this last hour or so. What I like to do as well before the show is over is I'll give you my email. If you have any questions about becoming a Christian, you can send me an email here, and I'll walk you through everything I know about how to be a Christian, and we'll just do a one-on-one. We'll do a video conference. It'll just be me and you. It won't be recorded or anything. But if you're a Christian already, I don't want you on that video because you already know, you have friends, you have family, you have us, all this kind of stuff. But if you're struggling, if you're searching, and you want to know who this Jesus Christ is, I don't mind doing a one-on-one with you and just sharing the gospel right from the Bible. And I'll pray with you. I'll prove that he's real. And just feel free to email me. And then also, just for fun, I also have a book out. This book here is available on Amazon. It's called Rewriting God, The Silent War Against the King James Bible, because there is a silent war that is against the King James Bible. I read the King James Bible. That's all I read. I've read it. I've shared on my audience 17 times in the last 3 years, just over 3 years. And I continue to read it because it feeds me. It teaches me about Christ. And of course, we have the Holy Spirit that'll help guide us. But the only way for that to happen is if you're actually immersing yourself in Scripture. Because then what could happen is one day you'll approach someone and you'll be talking, and all of a sudden verses will start dropping out, popping into your head, and then you can actually communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate you guys. And I will see you guys in another video. And I'm also going to repost this video again on Sunday. So this will be pre-recorded for Sunday. So thanks again. See you guys later. Bye for now.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fuel this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.